Ladder shelving is a great choice if you're looking for a fun and quirky storage solution or don't have space for a standard shelving unit. Not just for storing books, ladder shelving can be made in any size and used in many areas of the home to display everything from plants, ornaments and frames to hanging towels. Ideal for renters and those who like to move furniture around or prefer non-fitted storage, the open design of ladder shelving can make a room feel more spacious with its minimal footprint. They also sidestep the need to fit around skirting boards or other obstacles as they slope at a gradual angle, leaning against the wall. In this video, Carla, a keen home renovator and landscape gardener, is going to show you how to build a ladder shelving unit. The materials for this project are all available from Wickes and will take a DIYer with moderate skill approximately 2 hours to make. To account for paint drying times, we would recommend allowing a weekend to complete this project. Look out for this icon during the video for our DIY top tips. Find the complete tools and materials at the end of this video or visit the Ideas and Advice Hub at wickes.co.uk for a step-by-step guide and cutting list. This build is entirely custom and bespoke to your style, space and storage needs. We designed our ladder shelving to maximise 3 lengths of 2.4 metre timber for minimal waste. However, you can of course completely customise the height, width, depth and angle of the ladder to suit your space and requirements. If you choose to use our cutting list as a guide, it's a good idea to draw up your design and tweak the measurements before you begin to ensure you have enough materials to hand. Begin by leaning your first length of timber against the wall where you intend to install your shelving. With the top of the timber length against the wall, slowly move the bottom out until you're happy with the angle of the slope. When you're happy with the angle, butt a flat surface up against the side of your length, then use a pencil to scribe a line. This will be used to cut the angled slope. We chose to use a chop saw for accuracy and speed, but you can also use a hand saw if you prefer. Laying the first length on your workbench, use your square to measure the angle of the scribed line. Adjust the angle of your unplugged chop saw blade so it's identical, then clamp the length in place. Double check the angle is correct, then turn the saw on and cut through the length to remove the first angled wedge. While your chop saw is at the correct angle, repeat the cut on your second timber length to form both sides of the ladder. Now return the chop saw angle to 90 degrees. As we designed our ladder to minimise waste, our shelves were cut to a precise measurement taking the saw's cutting tolerance into account. Place the third timber length on the chop saw and use a tape measure to mark the length of the first shelf. Tighten the clamp, then cut through the scribed line and set the shelf aside. Unclamp the timber, then work in the same way to cut the remaining shelves before lightly sanding back each end to remove any snagged or frayed timber. Once you've finished cutting, unplug your chop saw and give your working area a good dust down. We decided to fix our shelves at regular intervals, starting from the centre of the longer lengths and working outwards. However, the choice is yours. Once you've decided on your preferred placement, lay both lengths of the long timber side by side on your workbench so one inside length and one outside length are facing upwards and are perfectly aligned at each end. This is to help with the shelf placement and fixing later on. Using your tape measure, measure and mark the halfway point of the first length using a crow's foot. Then, using the straight edge of your square or the 90-degree angle built into many hand saws, scribe a straight line across the width of both lengths. Using your tape measure, repeat this process, marking the shelf intervals and using your straight edge to mark both lengths so they're identical. To mark the precise angle for the shelves, align the handle of your square with the edge of the timber and the first 90-degree line. Scribe along the side of the blade to mark the first angle, then repeat for the remaining lines on both lengths. To guide the shelf positions and to prevent the timber from splitting, you will need to pilot 2 holes next to each of the angled lines. To ensure that the screws enter the centre of each shelf in the correct place, the pilot holes will need to be roughly half the thickness of the timber away from the same side of each angled line, rather than the 90-degree line. Use a wood drill bit to pilot through each mark, then use your sanding block from earlier to tickle away any snags or frays. For a neat and tidy finish, we used a countersink on the outer side of each length to tidy the pilot holes. Turn one of the lengths over so both have the outer side facing upwards, then countersink the pilot hole on each length. Take the length that has countersunk holes on one side and angled lines on the other and place it on its side so the lines are facing towards you. Check the cut angle to ensure the front of the ladder is against your workbench, so any shelf overhang is angled towards the back of the unit. Take your first shelf and line it up with the first angled line and pilot holes. For perfect placement, you will need to pilot through the existing pilot holes and into the centre of the shelf before securing with screws. Holding the shelf securely, use your wood drill bit to pilot through each countersunk hole. Then secure so the head of each screw is sitting below the surface of the timber. Repeat for each shelf, then lay the outer length back down so it's flat to your workbench and the shelves are pointing upwards. Now take your second outer length and carefully place it on top of the shelves. Working in the same way, use your square to double check the shelf is aligned with the scribed angle on top of the length. Then pilot through both countersunk holes and into each shelf before securing with screws. Now the ladder is constructed, it's time to begin filling the screw holes for a flush finish. We used a wood filler to match our timber, but you should use the best colour to suit your project. Work in a generous amount of filler to each hole, then leave to dry. Using your sanding block from earlier, sand back each hole until the filler is undetectable to touch. If you're not painting your ladder, this is a good time to sand the pencil marks away too. Once you've finished, give your workbench a good dust and wipe down. You can finish your ladder in any number of ways to suit your style and space. If you choose to paint, open your tin and give the paint a really good stir to combine any separated pigment. For the best finish, we recommend applying 2 coats of your chosen colour, starting with the joints. Once you've tackled the trickier areas, use a roller to apply a generous amount of paint to the larger surfaces for a smooth finish. Set the ladder aside to allow the first coat to dry for a couple of hours, then repeat the process, applying the second coat for a perfect finish. The paint will dry fairly quickly, but for a really solid cure, it's a good idea to leave the ladder to dry over a weekend. And that's it. Your ladder shelving unit is complete and ready to display your books, plants, pictures and ornaments. As functional a project as it is creative, try experimenting with sizes, shapes, styles, timbers and colours to add storage that seamlessly blends or boldly stands out in your spaces. Subscribe to our social channels and share your #WithWickes projects with us. And for more inspiration, ideas and advice, visit Wickes online and in store.